Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present the speaker for this morning's ceremony, Dr. Simon Longstaff, AO, Executive Director of the St James Ethics Centre. The St James Ethics Centre is an independent, not-for-profit organisation that aims to help individuals and organisations make ethical decisions by providing practical support in answering the age-old question of what one ought to do. The Centre prides itself on being a catalyst for ethical change and debate, and in 1991, Simon was appointed the inaugural Executive Director. Under Simon's leadership, the Centre has flourished, and in 2013, Simon was awarded Officer of the Order of Australia for his distinguished service to the community through the promotion of ethical standards in governance and business. Simon has a PhD in philosophy from Cambridge. Prior to joining the St James Ethics Centre, he worked in the Northern Territory in the Safety Department of BHP subsidiary GEMCO, lectured at Cambridge University and consulted to the Cambridge Commonwealth and Overseas Trusts. Known for his integrity and love of books, Simon was inaugural President of the Australian Association for Professional and Applied Ethics and is a Fellow of the World Economic Forum. He is Chairman of Woolworths Limited Corporate Responsibility Panel, the International Advisory Board of the Genographic Project, and Deputy Chairman of the Global Reporting Initiative Board. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Simon Longstaff.
Well, Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, members of the faculty, ladies and gentlemen, especially those who are family and friends of the graduates, and particularly those of you who are graduating today, I'd like personally to add my congratulations to your extraordinary achievement. You'd know that in the billions of people who live on this planet, a vanishingly small proportion of people will ever achieve what you've achieved today, let alone from a university ranked as this is within the top 2% of the world. And I'm sure that every single person in this room has travelled that journey with you and celebrate what you've managed to achieve today. Some celebrating in a slightly noisier and more ebullient way than others, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I'll just take this off, because I think I look really silly in it. But anyway, I don't get to dress up very often. Look, what I wanted to talk about today with you, particularly those of you who are graduating, is something which is so obvious that it goes unnoticed day in and day out. And that is that if you look around the world, through history and in contemporary times, no matter what you see, whether it's in the form of our built environment, our technology, even our fashion, our clothes, the way we decorate ourselves, all of these things could be different. None of them are mandated, all of them are a product of choice. And it's a remarkable thing to realise that even those things which are so well known to us, that the pyramids, for example, in Egypt, could have been massive stone cubes, or that the Parthenon in Athens could have been a radically different structure, or that the Opera House in Sydney, one of those iconic buildings, might have been a neoclassical building on Bennelong Point. Everything other than the raw substrate of nature itself, the laws of physics, all of it is a product of human choice. And because of your learning, and particularly because of the very special technical skills that many of you have developed in the course of your studies, you have an unusually high capacity to affect, for good or for ill, the kind of world that we will live in into the future. Most things that we choose to do are neutral, many are beneficial, but a few of the things we bring our technical skills to bear upon are positively evil. I don't want to put too great a dampener over such a celebratory occasion, but around about this time a year ago, I went with my son, we met in Germany, And just about half an hour out of Munich, I went to Dakar and visited there one of the most atrocious things that human beings have ever thought to make. It was actually a clear sunny day, and what I found was a beautifully engineered, spectacularly well designed and conceived apparatus for killing people. Now, that didn't have to be. That was a product of choice. And of all of the terrible things I could think about that have been made by people with a capacity to choose and shape the world, that has got to be an emblem of the most wicked. Now, how did it come to be? Well, certainly a number of people who brought their technical skills to bear in order to make that thing, whether they're engineers or builders or the people who worked through the logistics using their statistical and other skills to make that machinery work. Certainly some of them were deliberately committed to causing the great harm that subsequently befell the world, because the incidents that occurred there were not just those affecting the individuals, their families most immediately caught up in that terrible Holocaust. We've all been affected by it ever since. Some were deeply committed to it, but most of them were probably just going along with a system which seemed to be inexorable in its influence. They were probably people, much like all of us in this room, who didn't wake up in the morning with an intention to cause terrible misery, but were just doing what people just happened to be doing at that time. And in fact, if you go and look at the source of many of the things that happen, for good or for ill, and you ask people to explain to you why they're doing what they're doing, and I've been asking this question for over 20 years now, in civilian settings, in military settings, in the public service, in the private sector, not just in Australia but also abroad. When you ask people to tell you why they're doing what they're doing, the most common response you will get is that, well, everybody was doing it. Or that's just the way we do things around here. Well, what you have been able to achieve for yourselves, and with the support of those here on the stage and all of your family and friends, is the most powerful antidote to that. Because invested with the kind of education you enjoy after all your own strenuous efforts, you don't ever have to accept that things are done just because everybody does it that way, or that that's just the way we do things around here. Universities at their very best do far more than equip people with the technical skills they need to perform a socially useful function or to make them ready for employment. Great universities like this university invest every one of their graduates with a capacity for what I would call constructive subversion, a capacity to subvert the unthinking custom and practice that can cause so much that is wrong and sometimes some things that are good. To subvert that unthinking custom and practice, not to reject traditions, not to say that there's no place for the customs and practices that define the various cultures and civilisations from which we all come, but not to accept the dead hand of things because that's just the way it's been. Instead, to engage in this critical thinking, which constructively calls people not to throw things out and not to be just like you, but to help institutions like a university or a company or wherever you happen to be, help those institutions to become more fully the thing that they ought to be. Now, all of you graduating today are endowed with an extraordinary capacity to do that, because it'll be the choices that you make from this point out, given a certain kind of status and dignity in a society because of your achievements. Those choices will matter. They will make the difference between a world in which we would all flourish and one in which we struggle much more than we ought to do. So, along with everybody in this room, I really congratulate you. It's an extraordinary achievement. And I think that you can leave here so proud of what you've done, as everybody else will be for you. But I hope that when you go, that you remember that essence of what a university asks you to do, to not only be masterful in your deployment of your academic and technical skills in the pursuit of your vocation, but also, and most importantly, to draw on that critical capacity to think, to make a better world. Thank you.